Okay, so does anyone not know who I am and what I do? Does anyone not know? Oh, right, good, because I don't like telling people what I am and what I do, because you never know who's listening, you know? But I tell you what, it's always eye-opening when you come to these freedom festivals, or any festival really, because it's all a bit random out there. Okay, so I was talking to someone, and we're all saying, oh, what are you doing later? What are you here for? I said, I'm here for a 2 o'clock talk. And this woman stood next to me, and I'm actually talking to someone on my left, she's on my right. And I said, and she said, oh, is it 2 o'clock? I said, oh, that's that Adelman bloke. And I said, yeah, and I was getting all building up my house. She goes, oh, very disappointing. Yeah, I've heard him, very disappointing. You know, so you never know what's around the corner, and it's the universe keeps you sweet, keeps your ego intact. And then about half an hour later, there's a woman like waving at me frantically, and I thought, oh, well, maybe she wants an autograph, right? So and I bounce over, and when I get within like sort of spitting distance, she goes, oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was somebody else. So these are good experiences. They really are, because they keep you on your toes and they keep you real. Because it's very easy when what you're doing has some positive feedback. It's so easy just to get cozy with your own ego. And this is one of the things that the Matrix loves, is when we think we've achieved or we're achieving. We're not achieving anything. You know, you can influence people, hopefully positively, and that's the aim, is to be the change you want to see and to influence other people. So you know that this is about schooling, as the author of a book, School No Place for Children. Now, it said in the programme, the 2023 talk, and I'm sure I gave them an idea of what I was going to talk about, but they probably forgot. So it's the 2023 talk. The 2023 talk is all about it's the schooling apocalypse, and it's building up into 4 hours of raw material. So today I'm here for an hour and a half. It's going to be far more dynamic and interactive, because normally it's a 4-hour presentation. So I'm just going to give you the gist of the presentation, and I'm going to fire loads of questions at you. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, did you go to school? Hands up who went to school. That's pretty much everyone. Second question, why?
Because we were told to.
It's the law, that's a myth, so I'm demyth. Yeah, that's right, because we thought it was the law. We thought it was a good idea. And because everybody else was doing it. And we were in groupthink. And what COVID has done, bless it, and we have to bless COVID, COVID has smashed groupthink to pieces. That's what it's done, and that's what it was always going to do. The cabal are continually shooting themselves in the foot because they're fucking dense. They think they're smarter than we are, but they're not half as smart as they think they are. Right? And so they keep giving us opportunities to grow. Wonderful. And every time they give us another opportunity, we just say, thank you very much. But there are people in the freedom movement who don't get that. And that's been kind of disappointing. A bit like that woman said about my talks. A bit disappointing. And it's kind of disappointing that there's still a lot of people that don't get that the worse it appears to be, the better it actually is. It really, that's it. Once you get that, you're done. You're ready for the future. So, why did we go to school? Yes, because it was normalised. Not normal, it's absolutely an abnormal thing to do. To separate from your boy or girl at an early age, for no apparent reason from their point of view, what does it represent for them? When you just take them one day to a place they've never been to before and disappear into the distance. What does it mean for them in one word? Abandonment. Abandonment. And that abandonment, there you go, that abandonment is never forgotten. It's held in the cells, 50 years later, you get a knock on the door from that abandoned boy or girl. They're now middle-aged and you're elderly. And they say, Mum, Dad, got good news. What's that? I've found you a home. See what's going on? And we think that we're so civilised. It doesn't happen in certain cultures. You don't abandon the elderly in certain cultures. I met an African 40 years ago and he said, I don't understand your country. And I said, what do you mean you don't understand my country? He said, you abandon your elderly when they're getting frail. What's all that about?
Most cultures really. Lithuanians are not like that. You live in the same flat, usually 3 generations.
Yeah. It's because we've bought into the shipping laws of commerce and rules of commerce, and mum and dad or grandma, grandpa, no longer productive, may even be senile. You know, discard them. So karma, being fair, means that when we abandon them in old age, we feel justified because they abandoned us. And so it just perpetuates the sterility of society. It perpetuates the evil, if you like, because it's pure evil. It's callous, it's hard. This is not how we're supposed to live. We're supposed to live in community. Well, we start carving up that community as soon as the boy or girl is old enough to walk for themselves. You know, right, you can walk, off you go to school. And schooling has an agenda, and it has had an agenda just like hospitals have an agenda. And the similarity between schooling and hospitals is the agenda is military. Civilian life is not meant to have either schooling or hospitals. You're supposed to have wise men and wise women who can talk you through what your problem is, if it's a health problem, and wise men and wise women who can educate you and signpost you into learning what you need to learn. Now, how did that become an institution? A schooling institution and a hospital institution. Where did that happen? Well, it happened when the cabal decided it would be one way of creating a blob. When you're in that mindset, you're in a blob. You've been shaped into groupthink, into compliance. And the secret, stepping forward, is one by one, and that was the name of the film by Rick Mayer. One by one, we're supposed to be extricating ourselves from the blob. And some of us are. Some of us clearly have already. Some of us are in the process of doing it, which is why they come to these festivals, just to meet people who are maybe further down, you know, the de-blobbing process. And schooling really is a blobby process. I mean, if you think about the etymology of graduate and graduated, and I only learnt this very recently, so it just shows how much you've researched. There's always way more to do. Graduate or graduate comes from gradually indoctrinated, or gradually indoctrinate. So all these people that proudly, and I walk through the streets of Canterbury now, because that's near where I live, and you see them with their mortarboards on, they don't realise that they have been gradually indoctrinated. And they are the most difficult people to talk to, because their qualification is new and yours is ancient, your ancient history to them. So you by definition must know nothing, and they know everything. But everything has been inverted in this topsy-turvy clown world. Originally, it was the elders that knew everything. And the youngsters knew nothing and used to defer to the elders. So now what's going on? You've got younger and younger teachers who know less and less and less, because they're coming out of the system to go straight back into it. And so it's self-perpetuating. So we've got blind leading blind. And they've got nothing, they've got no life experience, and the classroom is devoid of life experience. It's a vacuum, total vacuum, because to develop key life skills, character, wisdom, intelligence, and there's at least 10 forms of intelligence. You need to live. And you're not living when you're sat in a classroom surrounded by 4 walls. It is actually 4 walls because the 4th wall, which is a window, looks out onto another wall, which is the fence that keeps children in. And in the book, I described, this was first written about 8 years ago, well actually 10 years ago, and it was published as an ebook 8 years ago. I talk about schools being like prisons. But I wouldn't use the word like now. They are prisons, full on. They're built by the same people that build prisons. They run on, once the boy or girl is in, they can't get out. Parents can't get in, increasingly. They are built along prison system lines. And it's amazing, I have audiences average age 50 to 60, and they're going, no, it can't, because they don't recall this from their childhood. Because back in the day, you could walk in and out of school. And they're going, no, it can't be. Because a lot of these people live in the smaller villages and towns and they don't know what's going on in the big cities. And thankfully, at the Odd Talk, I have 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds who are going, yeah, and that's it, that's exactly right, you know? So, you've got to have, if you want to know what's going on, speak to a boy or girl that's currently experiencing school, because nobody else will know. Because if you've left school, no one's going to tell you. And even because it's not going to be on in the mainstream, it's not the mainstream remit. Has anyone heard of adverse child experiences? ACEs. See, this is incredible to me. We should know about them. You do know about them, but you may not know them under this name. The mainstream says that there's 4 main ones. For children, this is. Death of a parent, incarceration of the parent, divorce of the parents, and serious illness, life-threatening illness. That affects boys and girls for a long time. Yeah? For a very long time. And that's known as an adverse childhood event. But one thing that will never be listed on that list is, guess what? Schooling. Because the system will not own up. Because it's the ultimate narcissist. It doesn't own up. It's the system that is causing, arguably, more harm because it's affecting everyone. Not everyone's parents divorce. And maybe it was an amicable divorce. Not everyone's parents get put away in prison, even though you might want them to now and again. Not everyone's, see what I mean? So all these so-called ACEs only affect a certain percentage of the population. But one thing that is affecting pretty much everyone is schooling. And because it's so all-pervasive, we don't notice it. We don't notice it, and they know that we don't notice it. And so again, something to be thankful for is the arrival of Satanism in the classroom. Now, I'm not here to go into the detail of what I mean by that, because I want to persuade you that schooling is an evil without actually resorting to anti-satanic propaganda, because there's no need for that. Because what they could do is say, oh, you're right, it's a fair cop, we'll take the devil worship and the anti-God stuff out, we'll put a little bit of God back in, and it'll all be healed. No, it won't be healed, because this book was written way before Satanism reared its ugly head for real in the classroom. And it's an agenda that is designed to create generation after generation, or the schooling is a response to an agenda that's designed to create generation after generation that won't question and that will feel codependent on the system. Yeah? So, I want you to, all together, after 3, shout no. Okay? 3, 2, 1.
No!
Right, that's probably the first time you've ever shouted no at someone, you know, in my position. Correct me if I'm wrong. When was the last time you shouted no in a classroom?
Yeah, as a friend.
No, as a service user, boy or girl. No, it doesn't happen. It should be happening. And I've handed out a remedy, you can get on the card there, which we'll be looking at before we end today. Because although the clear message is pull the boy or girl out of school, and you may say, well, I don't have any boys or girls in school, in which case pull the boy or girl in school out of you. Yeah? Because we've all got the schooled, with a D, child still running the programs behind our back inside of us. That's what the system needs, so that when the police officer turns towards you, you feel this shiver of anxiety. When you get a knock on the door from someone with a bad attitude coming allegedly to claim something off you, you go to pieces. Because we're not used to standing in our own authority. We're just not used to it. So, next question. What did we learn in school? Well, I've just hinted at the obvious thing. Fear of authority. Compliance. What else?
Obedience.
Obedience. What else?
Something about pie charts. Sorry, that was
Punishment.
Yeah, that if you don't comply and obey, something very nasty is going to happen to you. Someone or something is coming for you. So it creates a demon in your head, in your mind. So they've implanted demons of the mind in your head, which is why so many people... I've just been to a talk by Davey, right, on his attitude to life and how he doesn't pay this and he doesn't pay that. Totally on board with what he does and what he says. But you could tell in the audience, you know, when there's this ripple of applause, all he's doing is just being non-compliant. He just doesn't pay his bills. That's no big deal. There's no obligation to pay a bill. But the audience think that there is. But they think that there is an obligation to pay a bill because they went to school and felt that there was an obligation, A, to be in school, and B, to sit where you're told to sit, C, to shut up and sit still, D, to do your homework, E, to excuse yourself. It's just a continuation of that. And all he represents, and all I represent, is the idea that we are now taking responsibility for ourselves. We've just grown up, and we're just saying, actually, that doesn't feel right. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? If I had boys or girls now, and it's looking like it's... Yeah, of course. It's looking like it's going to become a moral duty to have boys or girls, because there's so many people whose semen and whose vaginas are defective now, that they're not guaranteed to give birth to humans. Yeah? So if we want to give birth to humans, some of us are going to have to volunteer and start giving birth. And I might be one of them. So this is the bachelor boy, you know, middle-aged bachelor boy that might start, you know, it's not, I'm not going to create a professional service out of it, don't get me wrong. Right? But, you know, but I'm seriously thinking about creating a family, which I've never done before. And it's not because I want a family, it's because I think we need to create new families with proper energy and proper ways of doing. Because entire generations have been lost to humanity, and we have to let them go. They're write-offs. We're not going to convert them. No one under 30 is going to be converted to the human cause. No one, unless they're already awake. If they were born awake, that's fine. But if they weren't born awake, they're already captured. Right? No one under 30. Forget it. Like I said, unless they are already awake. Those over 60 or 70 are probably okay because they haven't had the satanic schooling, and they haven't had the gadgets. So that's why the average age at freedom events is 65. Yeah. And it's that funny age, that funny demographic in the middle, sort of 30 odd to 50 odd, that I can't get my head around at the moment. I don't know where they are. But the 30-somethings and 40-somethings, conspicuous in their absence at freedom events, not completely, but they're a demographic that, personally, they've probably got their own kids. The kids are bought and sold into the system. So I think they're trapped vicariously. That's my feeling. It's just a feeling. So what did we learn at school? We learned all the wrong things, and we learnt that all the things that would be healthy in a sociable environment are demonised and penalised and criminalised, such as talking. What is it? Disruption. Such as assisting a classmate. What is it? It's cheating. So everything that you've ever been told and are still running that program, we have to re-evaluate. So that's why there are so few people who are prepared to trust you. Because trusting someone could get you into trouble. Being nice and cooperative with someone could get you into trouble. So we learned not to trust laterally or horizontally, but we were in effect being told to trust the narrative, trust the curriculum, okay? Meanwhile, God is taken out of the equation, so it's trust the government, because the government agent is the school. So there you go. There's the trust. That's where they place their trust. Up there. Government. Government wouldn't lie to you. Would it? Oh. No. Teacher couldn't possibly be wrong, could she? Doctor, scientist, BBC correspondent couldn't be wrong, could they? That's what schooling is for. It's so that it removes any doubt in your mind, any residual doubt in your mind that the system has got it wrong. Yeah? So if you spend, as they plan to create, you spend 20 years, because they're going to be abolishing jobs very soon. Jobs will just go. Alright? But what will replace them is academic opportunities. And you'll have an academic opportunity starting age 4 or 5, and you'll be in the university world till you're 25. So that will mean that you are basically a child of the state. They will separate you from your parents on every level: spiritual, emotional, social, physical. Put you in a metaverse. They'll kill your creativity. They'll kill your spirit. It's menticide. Killing of the human mind is a crime, which is not officially a crime, but it is a moral crime. Menticide. So all these future boys and girls that come out into the system will have been killed morally and spiritually. They will be dead. They will be dead. Well, dead, just dead. I'm thinking about making a family. I've got to be careful where I am. So they'll be dead. And I can already see, I don't know if what you see, but I can already see the teens and early 20-somethings, to me, have already died. They're already dead. Now just imagine that narrative escalates. Okay? I was with a friend, and she has a godson, and we met him, I think he was in Canterbury, and she said she gave this boy a big build-up. You know, he's doing a degree in this, and then he's going to do a master's in that. And I was going to do a talk like this a few days later. I said, "You want to come?" And he said, "Not really." I said, "No, you do. You want to come. Your generation is just not represented at these talks." "Oh, hi, Jim." "Your generation is just not represented at these talks." And I could sense that he wasn't going to come. And that kind of triggered me. I just thought, your generation are a bunch of morons. And that was me, that was the last nail in the coffin of that talk for him, you know. But I just thought, no, I might as well, have a go He's definitely not going to come. I might as well say something that will get something off my chest. Your generation are a generation of morons. Why do I say that? It's because you're not thinking for yourselves. That's my definition of a moron. A moron can't think for themselves. And that's what the schooling system is all about. It's to produce generation after generation of moron. Yeah, I'm the world's worst motivational speaker.
Yeah, you're bang on, mate. You're bang on.
Yeah, I don't, you know. So, what do we learn at school? Well, compliance and deference, and that we are not worthy.
Oh, yeah.
We learn self-loathing. Self-loathing will ruin your life. Because you will settle for a job that's not worthy of you. You will settle for a relationship that's not worthy of you. And it's so easy to blame your parents for your self-loathing. It's not their fault. It happened at school. How do I know? Well, I don't know for sure, but someone who read this book, a young man, said, David, I thought my problems were down to my family. He said, then I read this book, and he said, I realised it was my schooling. Because he had zero self-esteem, you know. He was just happy to have a job at B&Q. Okay? Now, I'm not putting down B&Q workers, but your self-esteem has got to be, you know, pretty much on the low side if you're happy, you know, if B&Q is doing it for you. Right? Other warehouses are available. No, don't get me wrong, it's not about being cute, it's about the fact that he wasn't aiming anywhere else. Okay? So, we just don't realise. We've been put to sleep, but we don't realise that we're asleep. That's what I'm trying to say. We've been harmed, but we don't realise that we've been harmed, and we certainly don't realise the extent to which we have been harmed. Just think. I mean, I shouldn't have to say any of this if you think about it. None of it should be just totally self-evident. But the reason I do have to say it is precisely because we're in a trance. Because if you do something, or if you hear something often enough, and you witness it often enough, and no one's questioning it, then it must be true and it must be real. But just think about putting a bundle of joy. We've talked about abandonment, haven't we? You know, so you get off to a pretty poor start after your first day at school, or on your first day at school. So you're already down. Schooling then just kicks you while you're down, and it will use isolation, punishment, threats, restriction of movement. If you were a grown-up, these would be serious criminal offences. False imprisonment. Schooling is false imprisonment. Detentions. Straitjackets. In America, they put kids in straitjackets. They taser kids in America. And it's all being normalised. They're now putting cameras in toilets and telling parents it's to protect the innocent kids from the wilder kids that you know, that are just trying to say something. They're trying to express their dissatisfaction with the system. And we need to let kids be wild because they're trying to tell us something. They're trying to release something. We have to let them release it. You know, I was once an event like this. I was once given the task of being the MC of the opening ceremony. So I've got all these hundreds of adults lined up, and they're expecting words of wisdom. I'm not going to get that, right? Because I had a plan, and I saw kids milling around, and the kids were thinking, well, the adults are having their ceremony while and we'll go. And I just called to them, right, kids, got a job for you, right? And I told the grown-ups to stand still. And I just said, right kids, off you go, no instructions. And it's amazing how many grown-ups shit their pants. Right? But why? Where's the trust? What have you done to the kids to make you think that they're going to come for you? Interesting experiment. I learned quite a bit that day. And of course the kids didn't do any harm, because kids don't do harm. But they have fun. And the grown-ups were showing an allergy and a fun phobia. And a spontaneity phobia. So this is another thing they've killed within us. Fun, spontaneous fun, which is why you need to neck a few lagers to get the fun, you know, pain avoidance, to get the sense of childlike fun back. But one thing that they are doing now, and I will touch on, and this is full-on Satanism, they are killing children's innocence right now, in a way that's going to another level. The innocence. So basically what we're here for, this is what I stand for, is to protect the innocence of children coming through. Because that innocence, where is that bloody thing? The previous speaker to me had a wonderful little, I think he saw it and he took it back. It said God is within. It was a little sticker that said God is within. Oh, did you take it right? Okay. So, all the most beautiful, pure gifts from the universe, if you don't like the word God, there it is. Thank you. Okay. The innocence, that's why the Satanists want to destroy kids' innocence. Because what they think is, when you destroy the innocence of boys and girls, you've destroyed humanity. And I think that that's largely true. Destroy innocence, destroy humanity. And one of the reasons why I personally gravitate towards kids at big events is because I like my energy, I like being around innocence. And my energy doesn't sit comfortably with people that are clearly, well, good, bad, indifferent, intelligent or not. I can see they've lost their innocence and they're grieving for the loss of that innocence. And I just, no, you can grieve for your innocence, leave me out of it. So grieve for your loss of innocence. But when I'm with boys and girls and I come here and I play table tennis with them, they've still got their innocence, they've still got their joyful, youthful exuberance. Yeah? Lovely. So that enhances my experience of the day. Yeah? And that is what they're coming for. And they're using hypersexualized texts in the classroom, hypersexualized conversation in the classroom. They're going to be injecting the boys and girls, because the next lockdown will be a threat to boys and girls, by the way. I hope you know that. Okay, because they've realised that we've seen through it and there's no threat to us. So they're going to, you know, the next lockdown will be, whether it's Marburg or swine or whatever, it'll be a threat to the boys and girls. And so if they're still in school on a day when they call global lockdown, they'll get, you know, their innocence taken via a jab. You can do your own research and draw your own conclusions. But that's the agenda. It's not about us, because they know that 20 to 30% of us are immune to the psyop. Yeah? And they also know that about 2/3 of the remainder are fully embracing the psyop. So they can forget about, you know, either they've already captured us or they know they're not going to capture us. So, but what they can do now is hover over the target, and the target is the kids. How else do I know that the target is the kids? Well, apart from common sense, is that because my talks have switched back to education where they started 5 years ago, I've been targeted by Antifa. And you only get targeted by Antifa when you're hovering over the target. Hello? She's here. Mommy here.
Is someone called Karen here?
Karen.
No.
Weren't you and your mum coming?
She came she said she would be here 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
Martin.
Oh, I'm so glad I didn't do a formal presentation. Yeah, Brenda, I've not seen you for 2 years. Right. So, taken off Facebook, taken off PayPal, targeted by Antifa. I'm hovering over the target, and the target is the kids. Yeah. So we have to realise that whether or not we have boys or girls is completely irrelevant. We have to take a stand to make sure that we give people who do have boys and girls or are planning to have boys and girls the information that they need to make responsible, self-affirming decisions. That's all we can do. Give them the information. That's part of the job. Get them to read that book. Get them to talks. Get them to read the light paper. Get them to listen to people who are getting reliable information out there. You know, there's plenty of us now. Plenty, you know, there's no shortage of truth warriors, reality checkers. Yeah, there really isn't. Was that a question?
Yeah, well, it's all a question, but and adding to what you're trying to say there, yeah, you've recognised that, you know, it's all our age group sort of here, the sort of 40 to 60 and above. But when you've got that sort of in their 20s, so that they've come out of the school system, they're awake, it's getting this information to them in a form that, because they don't want to come and join with us lot, because it's not in their age bracket. So here you've got a lot of, you know, little kids and us lot, but you haven't got that in the 20s age.
Well, actually, I beg to differ. I can half agree with you.
Well, I'm glad if you do, because where are they? Because my daughter needs to blink.
No, this is one of the common, but this is proof of what the mainstream narrative is achieving. It's achieving a divide and conquer. And if you're in a classroom where the oldest person is 6 to 9 months older than you, and the youngest person is 3 to 4 months younger than you, then you are brought up with a mindset that the only people worth speaking to, right? But that's, I've got mixed feelings about that. I recognise it as a reality, but I don't want to buy into it too much either, because I want to present an alternative reality in which all ages and all ideologies are welcome, because we don't look at age here. And many people have suggested, David, you need to get on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or whatever. And I can see why they would say that, and in my weaker moments I feel that that might even help. But I'm not so sure that it would, because I feel that I would be pandering to the short-termist, low attention span, you know. I want to challenge them to come and join us and sit still for more than 30 seconds. They can do it, it's just that they don't think they can. I have plenty of kids in these talks, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds that can sit still for hours. It can be done. It's a question of them. So I'm on the fence a little bit, but I'm holding firm for now, and we'll see how we get on with that. But let me just finish. I'll come to you in a minute. So what they've been offered is, and what they're being offered more and more, is academia. So everything's been funneled into academia, and if you've been to one of my talks, you know Oxford English Dictionary definition, yeah, of no practical use or value. So what we have is generation after generation that are of decreasing use and value, and deep down they know that. They know deep down, as well as loathing themselves, one of the reasons they loathe themselves is that they know they are good for nothing apart from being useless eaters. So they are proving the globalists, the cabal, correct. Yeah? But it's up to them to do something about it. Now somebody at the back wants.
Well, I'm actually from Canada, and over in Canada, the indoctrination is a bit more advanced than it is here.
Wow.
Parents are really starting to wake up because of the gender stuff that's been put into the schools, and they're now going to all the school boards, at the school board meetings, and they're challenging them, and it is all the young parents, not just their age groups, that are really waking up and finding out what's happening, and it's then waking them up onto all this other stuff as well.
And that's what, right, that's one of the reasons why I'm holding off, Della, is because I can see where the schooling is going. It's lost the plot. Right? Because we are winning, we're waking up in exponentially greater numbers. They're accelerating their own agenda. They're basically having a laugh on the way out. Yeah, they're just trying to prove to whoever they think they need to prove this to that, told you so, humans are just a pile of crap. You know, they'll fall for any old shit, they're stupid, and this is proof. But in endeavouring to do that, they're waking people up that we can't reach. So, yeah, and it's going to happen here. It's actually already happening here, to be honest. You know, there's parents in Wales, there's parents all over going, what's going on? What are all these demons doing as depicted in the school library? You know, and why is my 4-year-old being taught how to masturbate? How does that work? So it's happening here, so if it happens there, it happens here shortly after. The timeline used to be 10 years, it's now 10 weeks to 10 months.
Yes.
What did we actually learn of any value in school? Well, or what did we not learn? Okay, because we've looked at what we learned. What did we not learn? We didn't learn survival skills, emotional self-management, money management,
Growing your own food.
growing your own food, first aid,
Yeah.
breathing, sleeping,
Starting a business.
starting a business. If you list
Self-acceptance, self-love.
self-love, I mean the list is a joke. The list is an absolute joke because it's all the things that you need to live a full life. None of them are available in the classroom for many reasons. Partly because the teacher hasn't got a clue, and partly because the agenda doesn't want you to know.
It's not academic.
It's not academic. It's not useless enough. So we come out of that basically fodder, and we are fodder to the offer of a career because we're feeling very vulnerable. We've been decimated, we've been menticided, so the system says it's all right. We're going to offer you some money now via a career. Now that you've got your piece of paper, we're going to offer you a career. And those of you who've been to this talk will know how I use the word career. I turn it into a verb. Careering. What are you doing when you're careering? What have you lost? Direction and control. And that's how the system traps you. You've lost direction and control of your life. You're no longer living a life that's recognisable to you, to the deeper part of you. And if your paper qualifications are not worth the paper that they're not even written on, then you might have to settle for what's known as a bullshit job. And that is an official title given by Professor Graeber at the LSE, London School of Economics. Bullshit job is a job that even the person doing it doesn't know why they're doing it. So you can see that further down the line, when they abolish bullshit jobs, most people whose a bullshit job will be abolished will celebrate that fact and take the universal basic income happily. So you can see and that's going to happen. I don't think we can stop that. All we can do is pull away. Yeah? So there is a Titanic. All you can do is just jump off it. Titanic's going to go down, as it did before. Actually, it wasn't. It was called the Olympic, but that's another story. See, they've lied about everything. It wasn't even the Titanic that went down. And it was blown up. It didn't hit an iceberg, but that's another day's work. Right? So, when you know that you've been lied to about everything, it's not a huge leap to realise that everything in the school classroom is equally a lie. That's where the lies start. And the biggest lie of all which I have already hinted at, is that the government is your best friend. It's got your interests at heart. Well, how can it have my interests at heart when it doesn't have a heart? And I don't say that as a kind of emotional statement. It's a statement of legal fact. It's a corporation. Corporations are fictitious names on fictitious pieces of paper. This is the Wizard of Oz. The straw man has no heart. I'm not going to go down that road. David went down that road. So we have to be living beings. And that's another thing that's missing in the classroom. How to be yourself. So one of the questions I was going to ask, and I will ask it now, was where were you when you were at school? Strange question, isn't it? But you've never been asked that question ever before. Where were you when you were at school? That question on the surface appears to make no sense whatsoever. Where were you when you were at school? Would anyone like to hazard a guess?
Over.
No, where...
I was in my head, not my heart.
This is where I'm heading. With this is what I'm getting at.
Daydreaming.
Yeah, I would gaze out of the window.
Yeah.
So I was, and they call that boketo in Japanese, and it's a specific self-healing strategy for when you're in existential angst and you want to just stare into the future, stare out, and it's recognising now in this country, oh, you're not going to get your GCSEs doing that. That's what I was told. Yeah? Staring out of the window is a self-healing strategy. So where were you when you were at school? Yes, it's a good answer that, Leslie. In your head, not your heart. Another way that I would express it is that you were, in some ways, out of your mind. Now, the mind is a tricky concept. Some people think it's there, and some people think it's kind of everywhere, all around me. But you were out of your mind, because what they did is they put you in a specific part of your brain. Just once, but certainly out of your mind, because when you're in, that's hence the expression, he's out of his mind. Which when the mainstream uses it, it's using it to put down someone who's seen the light. Yeah? Just like we've been told we're nutters, you know, tinfoil hat wearers. We're out of our mind. Yes, we are, and we need to celebrate that, because we're conscious of being out of our mind, and we can come back anytime we like into our mind. Yeah? So at school we weren't conscious of that, we were just out of our mind, and we were also out of our body. Because when you're suffering from chronic stress, anxiety and trauma, one of your defense mechanisms is to float off, especially at a vulnerable age, out of your body. So you're not just out of your mind or out of your heart in your head, you're out of your body. So that's my answer to that question. Where was I? And I can tell you this as a fact. Where was I when I was at school? Well, from the age of about 12 to the age of about 32, I was out of my body. It took me about 20 years to get back into my body. How far did I go? Well, I didn't go too far. I mean, I was there or thereabouts, but I wasn't in my centre. And when you're not in your centre, you're away from truth. Truth is, like, do you remember the golden shot? Is anyone old enough to remember the golden shot? That was a metaphor for if you hit the centre of the target, you're in your truth. And the universe bestows all the rewards on you. But typical ITV it was at the time, they gave you, it was gold coins and cash prizes. Okay, so when you're in your centre, that's why so many people have fallen for the narrative bullshit, because they're out of their mind, out of their body, not in their centre, not in their truth. That's the deepest purpose of schooling, is to get you out of your mind, to get you out of your body and keep you there long enough so that they can fill the gap with their nonsense. They can fill the hole with distractions, addictions, weird ideologies, weird self-harming habits, because you have floated off. So that leads to the next question, which was going to be the first question. Who's your best friend?
You.
Who's meant to be your best friend? Yeah, you. But when you leave school, it's very rare that someone leaves school still their best friend. Because the prevailing feeling is self-loathing, anxiety, conditionality. Your best friend, well, who brushes your teeth? Who cooks your dinner? Who prepares your bed, goes shopping for you? Who makes sure you eat right? It's 99% of the time it's you. Who makes sure that you do the research to find out what you should be eating, what lifestyle you should be choosing? It's you. That's evidence that you are your best friend. But in the mainstream blob, the consensus reality, they're not being their best friend. They've lost faith in themselves. They don't believe that they could even be their best friend. They don't feel worthy of being their own best friend. So, when I was in a shop in Wales and I walked in, and this was full on lockdown, early 2021 I think, and obviously I'm just like this, and she goes, excuse me sir, but you'll have to wear a mask. Now, what I could have said, I didn't say that. At the time I just said it's against the law, and that caused a bit of confusion. But what I could have said, if I had thought it through the way I have now, is I'm sorry I can't do that because I am my own best friend. Think about it. You wouldn't want another person putting a mask on you. That would show that they're not your best friend. So why would you do it to yourself? When you're your own best friend, you do things that work, that make sense, that are rational, that are healthy, healing. We shouldn't even have to say any of this. None of it. It should be absolutely pure golden common sense that we understand from the age of 4 or 5, which happens to be the age that they send us to school. So we're learning the art of being our own best friend. And in that blob out there are all the narcissists and psychopaths that we got involved with because we forgot how to be our best friend, and we accepted their friendship, which turned out to be toxic, or their salary, which turned out to be toxic, and all because we weren't being our own best friend. Maybe it was a learning curve and it was all meant to be. Of course, that's always possible. Yeah? But that's the key. Be your own best friend. So, how can you be a best friend to your boys and girls? Well, it's pretty obvious. Is you pull them out of school and make sure they don't, especially in this day and age. It's actually now getting full-on dangerous. The classroom it's a danger zone. It's a crime scene. The classroom is now a crime scene. They should be taped up. What crime? Well, even the NSPCC are saying it is non-physical child abuse. Non-contact is the correct phrase. Non-contact child abuse is routinely taking place in the classroom, up and down the country. I'm not going to go into detail, just open your eyes, it's all over the internet. And these are crimes. These are crimes against humanity, and that's how I describe sending a boy or girl to school right now. A crime against humanity. And you're not just protecting your own boys and girls, you're protecting their boys and girls. Because if something medically disastrous happens to them, then they either won't be able to give birth, so that's sterilisation, or they will give birth to half humans, half robot, half human. Who knows? That's a possibility. So we need, I hope I'm wrong, but just in case I'm right, we need to be very, 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 very alert as to what is happening in the classrooms. Now, for me personally, I know it's easy for me to speak because I'm not a parent. And maybe one day, if I sign up to this agency that's soon going to be made again. But Some people say, David, we get it, and we don't want our boy or girl in school, but they think all their friends are in school. Or, I want the boy or girl out, but my missus or my husband is full on blobbing, right? And all hell will break loose, you know, because the blob will come for me, right? And there was a movie called The Blob. And it's called Wetiko. It's the Native Americans had a name for it. It's the virus that infects the universe, thinking that it can destroy God's creation. That's its main purpose. But I just call it the blob for simplicity. But it has agents, and those agents are in your family. You know, they're all around us. You know, they're not the blob, but they have been infected by the blob. So, reluctantly, I came up with a remedy that hopefully will give boys and girls some relief from tyranny in the classroom. And we're going to have a look at it now, which is that card. Everyone should have a copy of the card. It's called the School Protection Card. There you go, just anyone, if anyone hasn't. Has everyone got? So, boys and girls are rioting in the classrooms, and that's a good thing. We do need more riots, but they can become aimless, and we can lose sight of the fact of the ultimate bottom line reason why boys and girls are rioting. And they can be stigmatised for being violent and disruptive. And so what we need is a more coordinated and more thought through remedy. And this is what I came up with. There's 3 strands to this. So basically your boy or girl, or someone else's boy or girl, because you may be the grandparent. So your boy or girl is being stigmatised, they're attempting to regenderise, they're threatening with detention for free thinking, they're threatening with all kinds of nonsense for simply trying to be the boy or girl's self. So this is menticide. It's assault. If you're put into fear, that's assault. And it's trespass, breach of your peace. If you are anxious about being in class, then your peace has been breached. So the remedy is threefold. It starts in commerce because the school, let's face it, is a commercial entity. It's a branch of the bank, okay, harvesting infant energy for the bank because they're converting living beings into commercial resources. When they then go on to work for corporations, what's the department that controls humans? It's called human resources. So they're grooming boys and girls to become human resources. I could go much deeper into that, I'm not going to. So what we can do is to stand up for ourselves as a human resource to begin with, right? And what you do is you teach the boy or girl to say, I'm happy to comply with that, but, no, let's go back from the beginning. You teach them to ask whether they'll be given a request or an order. If it's a request, then you teach them how to politely and eloquently decline the request. But if it's an order, you teach them, or you show them, and print out for them and have it on them, a sample family invoice. A family invoice. Because we're in commerce. The boy or girl is not a boy or girl when they're in school. They are a child or a unit. They are an economic unit. Why do you think that the school makes such a fuss when you don't attend? It's because you become a zero and they get defunded for the zeros. They get funded for the ones, one is attended, and defunded for the zeros. It's all about audit and micromanagement and financial management. It's nothing to do with being a boy or a girl. Right? This is an economic experience that your boy or girl is going through. So, we're going to respond with a remedy in commerce, because that's what the school is. It's a branch of the bank. That's all it is. The bank run it, the bank sponsor it. You look at the signs outside the schools now. You know, St Wilfrid's sponsored by NatWest. Right? So, you're going to say, if it's an order, if it's a request, teach them how to politely decline. If it's an order, teach them to how to hand over an invoice, which will be your fees, as written on the back, your fee schedule for compliance. Now, this is only a suggestion of fees. You can do what you want, you know, with the fees. But the point is that you are sending out a message that you know what's going on, that this is commerce. And if the teacher gets funny, ask your boy or girl to say, excuse me miss, excuse me sir, but are you a volunteer here? Well, of course I'm not. Oh, so you get paid. So why do you expect me to comply voluntarily? Yeah? And that would be one way of waking them up without it escalating to the United Nations, which I'll go into in a minute. Right? You get them to wake up to the fact that you're a volunteer being asked to do everything voluntarily, but not being given a reason apart from, here we don't ask why and we don't say no. Well, that's not a reason. That's called coercion. And it's a crime in the United States. We don't have a crime of coercion in this country, but they do in the United States and in Canada. So, here you are, miss, here you are, sir. Here's our family invoice for compliance. We're happy to comply, but you must pay this to my mum or dad, and then we'll comply. You send out a strong message. This is not anarchy. You're playing by the rules. Maybe it is anarchy. If anarchy is freedom from rulers, then it is a form of anarchy. But you're being respectful. So you're playing by the commercial rule book. Now, let's say that doesn't work, or the child, either the child is too young, the parent doesn't have a printer, or the parents are not on board for whatever reason. Then we have remedy number 2, which is statutory. So you ask them again, are you giving me a choice? So the commercial remedy is order or request or order. Statutory remedy is, are you giving me a choice? If they say yes, you have a choice, happy days, make the right decision. Make any decision as long as it's voluntary. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing. This is a free will planet. We're supposed to be exercising free will choice. And that's something that maybe I could have mentioned earlier. That schooling is an exercise in the abolition of free will choice, which again goes against God. So, if they say yes, you have a choice, happy days. If they say no, you've got no choice, here we can't say no, we can't ask why, then, excuse me miss, excuse me sir, but I'd like to mention the Modern Slavery Act 2015, if you don't mind. What Modern Slavery Act? Well, Section 1, it doesn't say it here, so you might want to write it on. Section 1, which is the main substantive, as defined in Section 3, subsection 5, is exploitation. It's criminal exploitation to make a person, well, I'm a boy or a girl, do something against their will using threats or force. And it's very generically defined. It was a remedy that we've had for 8 years now, and we haven't been using it. It's been used against HMRC successfully. It's a generic remedy. Anyone can use it anywhere. Use it against your boss. Next lockdown, if they, insist that you've got to have a job to keep your job, just use that. You give me a choice. No, well, that sounds like criminal exploitation. Use it. This is the remedy. Everyone moans about the system, but the remedy's always there. They have to give the remedy inside the system. That's the whole, otherwise the system would implode. Remedy is always there, but they keep it from us. That's why they send us to school. Now, of course, if you start accusing a staff member of committing crimes, it's going to escalate even more. Happy days. Now we're in international law. United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1989. If they escalate it, you've got Article 28. Discipline in schools should respect human dignity. You can't lose. Either they relent, or you can then make some notes, take a recording, get a mate to record, and you've got them bang to rights. Local press, this school is in breach of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. It's not respecting our dignity. Well, some cynic in there might say, well, no school has ever respected a child's dignity. But maybe it's time to start. And this is the denouement, this is the apocalypse, where we've been settling for the most belittling, inhumane, dehumanising, humiliating treatment at the behest of school staff, and we've just taken it as if it's part and parcel of life. That was low-grade Satanism. Low-grade Satanism. Not Chinese communism, that's low-grade Satanism. Now, it's high-grade, high-octane Satanism, so that we wake the fuck up. I've done that. A note of caution, we are time limited to put all this remedy into action. What do I mean by that? Well, if the WHO get all the nations of the world to sign their treaty and not withdraw consent to the international health regulations, then they will have the authority in their eyes to do anything they want to any children in any school all around the world. And the United Nations conventions won't be there to protect you. Why won't they be there to protect you? Two reasons. It's written into the UN Charter, Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. I'm paraphrasing now. This is from the full talk, so I'm just throwing this in because I have to, it's important. Our rights become codependent on our rights being regarded as no threat to the collective. The minute they call pandemic, our individual rights become, that's what the message of COVID was. That's why we have no rights in their eyes. Because our rights were codependent on the collective rights. The collective had a virus, deadly virus thing going on, allegedly. So all of a sudden, in their eyes, remember, in their eyes and in our hearts, two different worlds. But I'm just talking about their eyes. So in their eyes, they would be justified in ordering the troops to pick up guns, point them at your head and say, get back inside. Yeah? Because our rights in their world and in their eyes will have gone. If pandemic is called, the collective, the rights of the collective overrun individual rights. It's not just written to the 1948 Declaration of Human Rights, Article 28 or 29 I think. It's also written into the International Health Regulations. They are deleting all the clauses in which they are promising to respect human dignity and human rights. So that is liable to happen in the next 12 months. So we have to pull the boys and girls out of school. Really, they should not be going back in September. That's an end of. You know? End of. Because as from September onwards, a disaster is liable to happen on a day-by-day basis. Yeah? I'm giving you the worst case scenario because if I don't, I don't want you coming back a year from now saying, David, why didn't you warn us? My kid's been sterilised. So I have to give you the worst case scenario so that you can do the best possible thing to prevent the worst case scenario. Because if you prevent the worst case scenario, there is no worst case scenario. I'll end on some myths. The myths of schooling is that you go to school to educate, to be educated. That's a total myth and a total lie. You go to school to be socialised, a total myth and a total lie. If they don't get you in the classroom, they'll get you in the playground. You go to school to learn stuff. No, you just learn what we said before, compliance, fear of authority. You go to, what was the other myth, major myth about schooling? I'll come back to that. Myths about home education, that parents are not qualified to home educate. Is that because they went to school? There's no such thing as home education remorse. I've never heard anyone say, oh, I took my kids out of school, well, we're so sorry. Doesn't, you know, not happening. There's also no such thing as the boy or girl that takes advantage of being free from tyranny and just sits there like a blob for 10 years. That doesn't happen. Because even if it happens for a few months, because they're not used to the freedom, eventually, like any kid, they get bored and they start doing stuff and looking for friends. And it's a test of their character. So that doesn't happen either. It's all nonsense. It's all absolute nonsense. What's another home ed myth? No infrastructure. Well, this is mass forming the future. All you need is 5 families within a reasonable distance of each other, and that's going to be happening pretty damn soon if it isn't already happening. And you've got the Monday family, the Tuesday family, the Wednesday family, the Thursday family, and the Friday family. What do I mean by that? That means that each family looks after all the other kids on that day, which means that the parents can work a 4 or 5 day week and the kids are always looked after. Get creative. We've got to put this divide and conquer to bed. Oh, I've had a couple of kids and we're all so isolated. Well, stop being isolated. Get out there. You've got the tribe. We've got a tribe to form. So, what's another home education myth? Well, there's one myth that I'm loath to mention, that you can't go on and do stuff at university. You wouldn't want to, but if you do, they love home educated boys and girls because they know that they're far more valuable, far more intelligent, and far more of everything. Oh yeah, you won't socialise at home. Well, that's exactly why you do socialise. Because you get taken places, you meet people, you learn skills, you can be inspired by people. You're never going to be inspired by your own peer group in your own classroom. You're all going to be, it's the lowest common denominator, sinking to the level of the lowest. Because the minute you defy that gravity, then it's the tall poppy syndrome takes place and you get your head blown off. Who do you think you are? So there you go. Any questions? So you might want to sweep round if someone's got...
I don't think some people want to be on the camera, David.
Oh, you don't want to be on the right? Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
I just wanted to give an example, something that you said that completely echoed when you said that the generation of 25s. I went to university as a mature student, but I was only 2-3 years older than the people there, and I was so shocked by their belief, first of all, the gender neutral and things I completely never heard of, that there's gender fluidity and all this stuff. I was also told that racism is only black people against white people, that there's no other racism, which I thought was crazy. And one of the girls quoted a book that the cover said, "Why I don't talk to white people about racism," which I was like, that's a racist cover, you know? And that's number 1 in some New York Times or something. And I thought, why would you quote something so racist? And I was like, I'm not English, but doesn't the word racism come from race rather than something that happened to black people by white people? And I literally couldn't communicate with people. Besides that, I was from a different country, blah, blah. But I completely agree that it was really, really strange that only a couple of years difference, stuff I never heard of came out of these younger people. And it was really sad because they were very, very motivated. They were really good-hearted, but they just, like, different. And my friend just failed her, well, she was just told to quit her PhD after 6 years because it wasn't academic enough. So she's dyslexic and ADHD, all the normal stuff that they make disabilities.
I don't believe in any of that.
Exactly, neither do I.
Yeah, attention deficit for me is the lack of attention given to you
Yes.
by the
And for
system.
6 years she paid for the PhD and she had people help her, support her, but she took the you know, you have all the choices of how you approach it. She took the action research and then they said it's not academic enough. Well, duh, she did things that were meant to help people in the industry that she was researching. And when she was of course upset, but she has not given up. So I gave her that quote. I just heard you recently saying what academia was, and I was like, well, my friend, you did something that's actually worth a while. Something that someone will be able to use. That's why they failed you. It's just not academic, it's not useless. So...
while I remember, in chapter 12, which is the main chapter on home education, what we see is how mums and dads surprise themselves, because they start out very diffident, because they've been schooled and they think they have to play the role of a teacher. What they end up playing is the role of a co-learner.
Yeah.
And it bonds. One of the things we could have discussed, and I do in the full talk, by the way, the full talk will be filmed and come out in October. That's 4 hours. You know, so it's this on steroids. You know? They find that they learn together, and it's like a family that play together, learn together, stay together, bond. I never bonded with my mum and dad. I never bonded because either I was at school or doing homework, or they were at work or recovering from work. There was no bonding going on. To this day, like about 20 years ago, my dad said to me one day, he says, "I can't make you out." And this is a wise man, he's very savvy, my dad. He can make everyone out that I've ever known. He can make everyone out. I've never met anyone that foxes my dad, but he couldn't make me out. Right? So the other thing is, what I've observed, this is an observable fact in the way I see it, is the difference between schooled boys and girls and home educated is monumental. The home ed boys and girls look like that they really are their own best friend. They're confident. They're not frightened of adults. They're not frightened of life. They're not even frightened of anything because they haven't acquired these fake fears. Remember, fear, false evidence appearing real. They haven't acquired that virus, that Wetiko blobby fear virus, which they inject you with in school. And they're confident and they're sociable. And there's a story of, I don't know whether it's in the book, I just can't recall, but a group of home editors socialising with a group of school kids and saying, I can't talk to the school kids because they're bullies, they're bickering, they're gossipy. I just want to talk to the grown-ups, you know? So if we're looking to create a generation or many generations to come of mature, wise, centred, calm, rational, compassionate people, the last place on earth that we should send them is school.
I've got an 8-year-old that I would like to send out of school, but I've got a fear that, as a solo parent, that when he goes to his father's, is he just going to continue in the indoctrination of the tech world, of social media and all of that is allowed freely in the home of his father? And that's, like, there's a big fear in that. And where do you feel that the technology sits in amongst the homeschooling?
Well, you can only do what you can do. You can only offer an alternative to the toxic environment that his father's going to offer him. So one thing that we all know with confidence, that if you don't offer that non-toxic alternative, then your son is doomed. Right? That's what we do know. So you are, at the moment, his only hope, because he's not old enough to be his main hope. Right, so you've got to transition him, that's the unfortunate word, but you've got to get him from now to an age where he can become his own best friend and his own best hope. And that involves offering the delights of freedom, sovereign thinking, independent thinking, you know, a relaxed life which is not micromanaged. That's the other thing you will discuss in the big talk. Things are micromanaged, your time, you know. All the blobby people, when you go shopping with them and you're lounging around the shelves like this because you're breathing and you're relaxing while you shop there. Come on! Where? I don't know, just come on. Because they're always in a hurry. Right, here, I'm going to ask you a question, because I'm from the north, and this is something I don't get about the southerners. When you're in the north and you're driving along at 60 on a 60-mile-an-hour road, so everything's hunky-dory, you're at the limit of the speed. In the north, you get the odd psycho that screams past at 90 and goes and disappears into the distance. But in the south, it's a bit more complex than that. They scream past at 70 and take up a nice position just in front of you. What the fuck is that? Come and see me afterwards and explain it to me, because I cannot get my head around it. Right? So...
It's because the southerners drive up north. Drive in the south.
Oh dear, it makes me laugh. I can see it coming, right? It's big 4x4, it's going to grab it. Next thing I know, yeah, I'm in a queue led by the 4x4, you know? It's hilarious. Right, where were we? Sorry. What?
I had the other question, but I don't know.
No.
I was just wondering about...
Sorry, darling, I can't do... I forget who was first, so... Go on, ladies first.
I was just relating to this lady at the back, just to give her a bit of hope. I brought my daughter up on my own from the age of 3, and I had the same fears. But yeah, you take him out of school and give him as much of you as possible, that other alternative. You don't have to say anything about the other side. They make their own decision. Because you've taught them critical thinking. They feel what's right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
It's a very good point. Remember, this card reflects partly, and also the other card that I have. If you want the personal protection card, come and grab me later, and I've got it in my car. That's the one for grown-ups if you get, harassed by the police or by agents. The power of the question. So you don't try too hard to do what the blobs are doing. It's indoctrinate. Just keep asking questions like, are you happy? Are you happy? What choices have you just made that you may not be so happy with? And just question. And encourage your boy to ask you questions. And then you'll start to create a world in which he actually feels empowered, because he's being, I don't know which is more empowering, asking or being asked, maybe equally. But in the blobby world, it's not happening. I can be in the company of a narcissistic blobby, and for 6 hours, and they haven't asked me a single question about me. Not one. Yeah? I now understand what's going on, but it used to drive me mad, because you don't exist for them. Yeah? You're not part of the group thing, you're not part of the blob. So you've got non-blob written all over your forehead. Do not disturb. Right? Right, sorry, get on.
What about kids going to university? University is out as well.
Right, nothing's off. It's about consciousness. As long as you can do anything, right, wrong, indifferent, as long as you're doing it consciously from free will choice based on fully informed decision. So I wouldn't want to say don't go. I'd love to say don't go or don't let them go, because bad things tend to happen at university. But if you feel that they are confident in themselves, if you feel that they are their own best friend, then that may be sufficient protection against the nonsense. But if they need such protection against the nonsense, why are they going? So why? Keep asking why. Why are you going? What do you hope to achieve? Why can you not achieve that elsewhere? And you can mention some of the most famous people in the world that left school at 14, 15, 16 and didn't look back. It's a process of retardation. I call schooling a subhumanizing process. It's designed to take a divine entity, age 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and turn them into a blob. A moron. What? Yeah.
Yeah, but after saying that same process, I mean, if you've worked with your child actually, in my experience, sending Ren to university, it was part of the education of her going to the coalface and seeing what the fuck is that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So
because
in some cases, it's like, it's about showing them. Sometimes you can't tell them, they have to go and see.
oh yeah, absolutely. This, if anyone thinks that I've said anything dogmatically, then I've either not expressed myself very well or they've misinterpreted what I've said. Because none of this is dogma. It's simply designed to make to make it easier for you to take, to uproot that conditioning, that embark on the process of deprogramming, start to self-reflect. What is it? In what ways am I really not my best friend? And I'm going to explore this more fully in 2024 with a talk entitled Developing Full Functionality. In other words, the art of being your best friend, your own best friend. Yeah? Because yeah.
Well, say, earlier I said I'm from Canada. I went there 17 years ago, and homeschooling was quite a thing back then. I mean, going there, I wasn't even aware of homeschooling.
Yeah.
And that what they do then. And I talked to many parents about homeschooling, and especially when the children get older as well, and they're doing stuff on the net, they finish their school day by lunchtime.
Yeah.
Because you've not got 30 other children that they're trying to get to, so it takes that much longer to teach, and they get through their schooling that much quicker. And this was one that had 3, and they've all gone into university.
Brilliant. Something that I often forget to do, I've got copies, I've got plenty with me today. Special price for this weekend, 15 quid, normally 20, because I hadn't had to travel that far. I run a course, the People's Lawyer Privacy Universal Rights course, which will give you the grounding in how to be your best friend out there. Legally, morally, politically, psychologically. So that's that. What else? And I do talks all around the country. Just there's a website, thepeopleslawyuk.com. It's on the card, and the website updates itself to let you know where I'm going to be. There's a bit of a hiatus in August, but coming back, hitting the ground strongly in September. Some big talks. This talk, but the one on steroids in London, North East, Middlesbrough. And just check the website, So, this is what I was born for, to be quite honest. It's to make sure that enough boys and girls survive healthy enough on all levels to make sure that humanity makes it through the tunnel of death.